Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the first to originally use name Indiana Jones in the title. Raiders of the Lost Ark was originally just Raiders of the Lost Ark, and yeah, I'm running through all of the Indiana Jones films leading up to the release of the Dial of Destiny on December 1st, right? Hopefully I got that right. Hopefully I timed this correctly. So yeah, today we have, it's from 1984. It's 2 hours long. It says here it's an hour and 59 on my different device. I don't know. Either way, this, once again, stars Harrison Ford, directed by Steven Spielberg, introducing Kate Capshaw as Willie Scott, the femme fatale in this installment, and Ke Huy Quan as Short Round, introduces him. And of course, people know him from this, and then Goonies, and then many years later, Everything Everywhere All at Once, where he won an Oscar. And now he has recently appeared in season 2 of Loki as another beloved character that just wherever he goes, his positive energy is just, he's just cool. He's just he seems like a great guy. I don't know him personally, so maybe he's just a horrible person in private. I have no idea. From everything everybody else has ever said, and he's pretty amazing. So yeah, I doubt that horrible guy assessment would ever hold true in any sense of the word. So yeah, here he is. He's a little guy. This is, like I said, the second in the series, but it's a bit of a prequel. It takes place about a year before Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is Indy when he's a little bit more fortune and glory, a little bit more fast and loose, and he is... you don't see any sign of him being a school teacher in this one. A professor. He is from the start wheeling and dealing in Shanghai in a little place called Club Obi-Wan. Yeah, you'll see this right after they fall out of the window and into the car, and there's a kid driving the car, Willie says, and you can see the marquee called, and it says Club Obi-Wan on the side and on the front as they go around the turn. So yeah, I mean, it's a given for a lot of people who have seen these movies a million times. But if you're new to the series, well, guess what? There's a little Easter egg for you. Well, George Lucas wrote this one again. Like I said, Steven Spielberg directed it, and this is one of the films, while still amazingly fun. It is a much darker film, and it's probably Steven Spielberg's least favorite from what he has said. The only, well, not only, one of the greatest things to come out of this, other than Ke Huy Quan, yeah, I pronounced it right, I think. Rather than having Ke Huy Quan being introduced in this, is also getting a wife out of this deal. He married Kate Capshaw as a result of working on this film. So yeah. So it takes place in Shanghai in the very beginning. By the way, there's going to be spoilers because this movie is nearly 40 years old next year. So it'll be 40 years old next year, yeah. Feeling old. And honestly, I'm going to let you skip right here. If you're worried about spoilers and you wonder what I think about the film, well, honestly, I don't know why you would be watching me to get my inference on a 40-year-old film. And if you've never seen the original film, I say, go watch the original film. All the Indiana Jones films, good or bad, or somewhere in the middle, still worthwhile watching, usually, more than most films, especially Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I'm not going to tell you about the other ones yet, because I'm not there yet. I haven't watched most of them in a very long time. Actually, of the original trilogy, this is probably the one I've watched the least. It's not my favorite one, but I have a number of friends who consider this their favorite of the 3 originals. I even have somebody who considers Crystal Skull as their favorite. So, or not so bad, let's just say. Either way, this takes Indy on a journey from Shanghai in an almost non-stop chase out of Shanghai into India and where they stumble upon a village bereft of children and color and any shred of happiness. It's just weeping women everywhere and wise elders who are sending Indy on a mission because he fell from the heavens because Shiva disabled the plane he was in, according to them. And Indy's like, I don't know about this mumbo jumbo, but okay, I guess I've got to go to the palace because, well, I won't spoil that. He kind of is convinced that there's something going on. Okay, the kids are missing. And when he discovers that a kid stumbles back in a camp who had escaped his horrible imprisonment, enslavement, he's convinced he needs to go there. You're like, well, why is Indy suddenly caring about kids all of a sudden? Well, it's not like it's a sudden thing. The introduction of Short Round as a sidekick tells you that he cares about kids before he's suddenly put on a mission to save kids. So, yeah, Short Round coming out of nowhere for a lot of us is like, well, it's in his nature to take on a sidekick, I guess, and he would go on such a mission. And also, of course, Fortune and Glory, getting the Sankara Stones. Yeah, by the way, I've never defeated it yet, but I do have, this is an arcade right here, I do have the Indiana Jones arcade game on here, and I still have not defeated it, even without needing quarters. Yeah, so. So yeah, he's takes Short Round with him, and he takes Willie along with him, even though she serves no discernible purpose except for maybe possibly a romantic dalliance, or not very romantic, just carnal. The very beginning, by the way, how do you follow up Raiders of the Lost Ark? That's got to be the big question. That was the big question in 1984 when this came out. It was like, how do you follow up such an iconic film, such a beloved film? Well, you do it a musical right off the bat. In Chinese, Willie, Kate Capshaw, singing "Anything Goes" in Chinese. I don't know what dialect. I'm just going to say Chinese because I'm ignorant of the dialect. If you decide to throw on the subtitles to see if it will translate what she's saying, you will get no help. You will get only the subtitles for when the chorus hits and she goes, "Anything goes." So you'll see that, but all of her, nothing is translated out of the other language. So I tried that and it did not work. So yeah, it's like I said, this is a darker film. There is I mean, children enslaved. It's whippings and a bit of torture, some human sacrifice, drinking blood, tearing out hearts. But yeah, this is kind of, from what I understand, if I remember correctly, I could be completely wrong, this is the film that, yes, Indiana Jones had a general audience kind of fan base, like young and old. Anybody could watch that. Yeah, there's violence in it, but it's never too crazy gory. There's people being shot and stuff like that, and a guy gets chopped up in an airplane propeller. We don't see it. We just see the splash of blood. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, in this, because of these darker tones and these things that go on in this, a lot of kids are going to this film, but I think they literally had to implement the PG-13 rating because of this film, with this film. I think there's something had been percolating already, but this might have been the first film to have the PG-13 rating in history. So you got to understand, there's been a bunch of other films that came out in the 80s and before that were parental guidance, PG, and they had a decent amount of nudity, language, and violence that barely would pass R today, rated R. They would jump right to rated R. But in It took till 1984 for them to implement PG-13 to say, yeah, you know what, maybe you should be a teenager to be able to handle this. Maybe the preteens can't handle all the gore and everything else. In this, though, this is also a little bit more adult. There's a little bit more adult innuendo and things like that between Willie and Indiana Jones. But yeah, I'm not going to ruin any of the jokes. It's mainly done out of humor, but it's definitely, you know, different things. So honestly, yeah, like I said, this takes place a year before 1935. This is where you're not, in case anybody's curious, they're like, oh wait, what happened to Marion? I thought there was a great finish with Marion in the last film. Well, no, he's not back in Marion's life just yet. So when he runs across this showgirl in Shanghai, and he ends up having to drag her along with him as they escape the club after a deal gone wrong, well, she's there to make things difficult and scream a lot. This is one of the most grating parts of this film, is there's a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling. It binds up my back a little bit, where it's not just her. Sometimes it's Short Round, sometimes it's Indy, but there's a lot of yelling at each other. But most of it is done for the sake of humor, especially, and there's also comedy that is introduced, a little bit more just overt comedy is introduced into this film to make a very expositional conversation less tedious. There's when they get to the palace, and Indy is interviewing some of the people who, you know, run the palace and everything else, and there's also an Englishman who is visiting at the time. By the way, the Indians, especially in the early 1900s and now, didn't like the occupation of the English, the British. So yeah, it was not yet the time in which Britain released their control over the area. So there's a little bit of a political discussion, there's a little bit of a historical discussion and mythology and everything else that's going on between these three men, on the verge of offending each other. Also the Maharishi, he's also there. But while they're having a very serious conversation, Willie and Short Round are being served dinner, and plate after plate is one overtly, maybe racist, I don't know. It's just overtly gross food after another. Maybe they ate that back in that day. I don't know. Maybe there were delicacies when you cut open a giant snake that live eels come out. I don't know. Maybe for dessert you had monkey brains scooped out of a head, of the monkey's head. I don't know. Giant bugs and everything else. It's really kind of off-putting, but it's done as comedy, so that, and Willie and Short Round are just like, oh crap, I'm not hungry. Oh, I had bugs for lunch, sorry. Not for me. Well, everybody's just chowing down around them. Yeah, it just didn't seem to sit. I don't know if it sits well. I don't know if it plays well today. Like, maybe somebody can correct me on this in the comments. I don't know. I'm not claiming that I know that these are delicacies in India. And if it's offensive to just go look at this and go, who do you think we are? You know, I don't know if that's the attitude, but yeah, it's a little off-putting, as much as it is funny watching Kate and Ki Hai Kwan roll their eyes and freak out and faint and just doing the comedy, while Indy pushes along the main storyline, the backstory. So yeah, so there's a number of iconic action sequences that don't involve whipping children. There's the pulling of the heart out of the man's chest. Indy being turned evil. There is, of course, the mine car chase, which you gotta have a big, crazy chase in this. The use of miniatures and stop motion to a degree, I think. I'm not sure exactly how they did it. There's plenty of documentaries, I'm sure, out there. It's been a while since I've watched them, but there's a lot of miniatures used to do that. There's no CGI at this point. It's miniatures and green screen and things like that. Then there's also the rope bridge, the big rope bridge finish where, you know, Indy's surrounded on all sides. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna cut the rope? Is he gonna cut the bridge so everybody falls to their death or not? You have to watch to find out. But it's an iconic, just the shot. Like, if you show me a still of that scene, it's still like, it's classic Indiana Jones. So Mola Ram, the bad guy, is very much really threatening and very, very creepy looking dude. So he makes for a good villain. But for the most part, a lot of the darkest struggles is before they escape the underground lair where all the children are enslaved. And both Short Round and Indy get their licks in with comparably sized foes. I'm not going to ruin that for you. If you already know, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, and Willie is there throughout it to scream and do motions and cheer them on. She doesn't get, normally in a movie like this, they would find a female antagonist and then she would fight the female antagonist because everything has to be exactly equal. But for the most part, she's just there to scream and react to everything that's going on around her. Which again, yes, that noise can be grating at times. Good for her. I was reading a little bit that the scenes with all the bugs and stuff like that, some really creepy freaking bugs. Yeah, she did that, and she had to take some sort of medicine to keep her chill, let's just say. While she did those scenes. There's some scenes where you can see like a big gigantic centipede crawling up her back and under her hair. That's, I think, a dummy. I'm pretty sure that's a dummy, just wearing a blonde wig. So yeah, because they're not showing the face and it just moves up through there. Yeah, there's no human being. I would not ask my future wife to have a gigantic centipede crawl up the back of her neck for anything if I planned on marrying her. Yeah, if I was directing the film. Good call, Steve. So yeah, that's pretty much Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I can't say it's my favorite. I can't say it's my favorite, but it is still a great adventure and it's a great entry, and it contrasts nicely with what is before it and what came after it. So yeah, it keeps it diverse. So it's not the same recycled movie over and over again. Yeah, it still has the same beats in many ways, but thankfully it doesn't feel the same. I think the editing is just a little bit off on a lot of these things too, where it doesn't flow the same way as Raiders of the Lost Ark did for me, considering I saw it just yesterday. So it feels different, and it's meant to be framed in a way that's more lighthearted, but still darker at the same time. So yeah, it's a very conflicted movie tonally, to me, anyway. All right, that's that for that film, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Tomorrow, of course, we're going to keep going as we head to Dial of Destiny. We are going to be watching Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, featuring Sean Connery. Instead of Ke Huy Quan, we got Sean Connery going the other direction, getting the old man instead of the young kid. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, considered to be, at that time, the last Indiana Jones film ever. On the next Disney Plus Everyday Challenge.